Breath of the Wild 2. Isn't it still insanely wild? Get it? That we're getting a direct sequel to this gem of a game. And that Breath of the Wild 2 will indeed be Zelda number 20. Insane! But of course, with all new games, especially Zelda games, we have a ton of questions for this title that we want answered. But what is most interesting about this Zelda game is the fact that it is a direct sequel to a game that many of us should know the ins and outs of at this point, and we can use that established knowledge to ponder what is next for the adventures of Link and Zelda in this familiar world of Hyrule. These are 5 questions that need answers in Breath of the Wild 2. What's up guys, it's HMK once again with another Breath of the Wild 2 video. I know all of us have a ton of questions for this mysterious title, but I want to start this off with 5 that I feel that are pretty important. Of course, we could have more questions later on. With that being said, for the safety of hype, I'm gonna ask you to strap on in. Let's dive directly into the noise. Now we got 5 questions. None of these are really ranked in order of importance, so I'm just gonna go through them starting with number 5 through 1, and then you guys tell me what you think is the most important question out of these 5 in the comment section below. So let's start. In the case of any direct sequel to a video game, we have to ask the first big question, and that is, how long has it been between Breath of the Wild going into Breath of the Wild 2? How much time has truly passed? I mean, it has to be enough for Zelda to want to change her look. I really feel the short hair suits her. And of course, for them to want to go on to a mission that is definitely not alluded to at the end of the first game. As we left them off, Link and Zelda recently defeated Calamity Ganon. And while on their way to fix a unresponsive Varuta, Zelda claims that the world is gonna band together in order to rebuild the kingdom of Hyrule to its former glory or even beyond. Obviously alluding to a restoration effort. And when thinking about that, honestly is the safest type of way to end off a game with a calamity like this. But now that we know that we're getting a sequel, I want to know how long has it been and why this idea was transformed into what we see and what we think is the beginning of Breath of the Wild 2. How much time has passed where the idea of restoring Hyrule now encompasses going into the depths of the unknown to find all of this horrific stuff? When it comes to my personal take on this is that I want enough time to see some development of restoration in Hyrule between Breath of the Wild 1 and Breath of the Wild 2. I don't want it to happen too fast after the first game, like weeks or months. I would like a nice round number, maybe a year, 2 years, but I think a year would be more acceptable. And this segues into the next question that I want to be answered in Breath of the Wild 2. With the amount of time passed, and with what the original goal was in mind from the end of Breath of the Wild 1, I want to assume that some work has been done before Link and Zelda decided to go into the depths. And that goes into the question of what exactly is the fruit of the restoration effort by the time of Breath of the Wild 2. After the calamity, Hyrule has had no shortages in ruins scattered across the map. These sad sights range from a house or two to an entire village. And combining that with the likes of Hyrule Castletown and the Akala Citadel, it really makes you wonder what these locations were like, full of life. So I would like to see how the restoration effort goes between the time of Breath of the Wild 1 and Breath of the Wild 2 in restoring some of these areas, rebuilding the buildings, reclaiming the land around it so that people could live there, so on and so forth. I would love to see Castletown restored to some degree, but as we see in the trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, with Hyrule Castle rising to some sort of level, it could be possible that the Castletown is not going to be rebuilt or even stand up by the time we get there and play the game. But without counting that, I want to see some effort, I want to see some transformation within the land of Hyrule. Because you know, with the confirmation that we will be going to the same land of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild 2, I want to see some differences here and there, things that you can spot. And I know that there's going to be a bunch of YouTubers that are going to do the before and after montages. And of course, these new rebuilt areas can offer various services and new elements for gameplay. And that's a question that I need answered. When talking about the ending of Breath of the Wild 1 and what Zelda wanted to do in that ending, it really makes you wonder, why go underground? I mean, there's a ton of theories on why we're there, including my own, where Fi is the one that's directing them through song, through the Master Sword, on a big threat that's incoming. But even if we set those aside for a moment, I want to know Nintendo's reasoning and logic along with the narrative of Breath of the Wild 2 that feels the need for Zelda and Link to possibly start here in the sequel. Are they really looking for Ganondorf's corpse? Maybe they're looking for something that would aid the restoration effort, that's why they're down there. But in the trailer, the more they go down there, the more imagery related to Ganondorf they see. So maybe they are looking for him, or they're being led on a wild goose chase, being deceived by someone at the surface, leading them down their debts. To me, it's just really mind-boggling when you would put two of the most important people to the restoration in the future of Hyrule in a dark, uncharted, literal death trap, housing the greatest evil known to the world when you've just defeated the Calamity version of it. Here's an idea: maybe they're looking for the power that's being supplied to that mysterious hand that seems to be sealing Ganondorf, but they didn't know that that power or hand is sealing Ganondorf. They're just going off on the knowledge of, hey, if we find this hand, it'll help us restore Hyrule. And then they get to the hand and they're like, okay, what's that at the end of the hand? I mean, because when you apply that, it does kind of make sense when you take the association of each part of the final entity they see there, Ganondorf being seen by the hand. You see all the imagery of Ganondorf and then leading to Ganondorf, and then the hand, which we believe to be supplied on spirit magic, and then you see the luminous stones, which probably have to deal with spirits, and those have departed. So there's hints of both going towards that final discovery. Regardless of all that, I still want to know the catalyst to the reason why they decided to go into the caverns. Now, of course, this is the gigantic elephant in the room, and we're gonna have to address this at one point in the video. The next question is, will this game finally answer the timeline placement of Breath of the Wild along with Breath of the Wild 2. Despite what everyone's saying here and there on their supportive evidence, theories or whatnot, we don't have any concrete proof on where exactly this game falls into the timeline yet. And yes, there's proof for all three, the adult, the downfall, and the child timeline. And before you guys bring up that nonsense about Breath of the Wild taking place at the end of every branch timeline, thanks to the official site, no. That's heavily misconstrued, and it just plays onto the fact that we know that Breath of the Wild is the latest game in whatever timeline it does fall into. This has been a debate for years, and despite your personal feelings on the Legend of Zelda timeline, it still stands and is a very important piece of the series lore. And maybe, finally, Breath of the Wild 2 will answer the questions on where this game falls into the timeline, and I feel that the biggest catalyst easily to the discovery of that answer is the return of Ganondorf. His appearance, his fate, his situation will more than likely, and I'm pretty much 100% on this, will be explored in Breath of the Wild 2. And is within this exploration, we are going to get answers that will connect to the past of the Zelda series in very particular ways. As by the time of Breath of the Wild, the entity of Ganondorf has nearly been long lost to history, with footnotes of his existence barely remaining within the collective histories of the Gerudo, the Zora, the Sheikah, and Hylians. But yet, here he is, literally in the flesh, or what's left of it. So with his physical existence still barely intact, he can tell us familiar stories of the past lives he's once lived. And that can give us the key on unlocking when this game actually takes place in the timeline. And now we come to a very interesting question that I want to pose to all of you, and of course try to answer on my own here. And that is, what is the first thing Ganondorf is going to do now that he's back? The great king of evil is finally making his grand return in Breath of the Wild 2. And it seems that he's reawakening in a very big way, because I'm pretty sure he's the one who's causing Hyrule Castle to rise out of the ground. Knowing what Ganondorf has done, what he's capable of doing, in the past games, I feel he would try to rebuild his army in some capacity. Luckily, and scaringly enough, he has both a monster and a human component to add to his ranks. Moblins, Bokoblins, Lizalfos, Lynels, they're everywhere in Hyrule. And for someone like Ganondorf, commanding the likes of those is gonna be cakewalk. Not only that, he'll have the whole Yiga clan under his thumb. These guys are literal Calamity Ganon, or in this case, Calamity Ganondorf fanatics. They worship him like a god. And when you combine this with two other very scary aspects where possibly he could reproduce enemies that we did not see in Breath of the Wild, where we were like, huh, that's funny how they're missing. He can use his powers in order to bring back these enemies, such as Poes, Skulltulas, Stalfos, Armos, and more. And as this is the human side to Calamity Ganon, I'm pretty sure he's gonna have the same abilities, if not better, than what the Calamity Ganon had. And that means if there's Sheikah Tech or Guardians still running around Hyrule, even if they're on or off, he can easily remalice them and add those things back into his ranks. And if we're taking this giant supposed army that he could put together in like 2 seconds, he's probably gonna need a base or a domain. Now one would think, okay, yeah, go back into Hyrule Castle because he's gonna make it float off the ground or something like that. That's already been done in Breath of the Wild 1. What I like to see is him recapturing the entirety of the Gerudo Desert, driving out or killing all of those who don't follow him in the region, and once again transforming it into the Haunted Wasteland. There he could build his castle, regain his strength, arm his forces, and control a giant chunk of the map. I actually want to play around with that idea a little bit more. But honestly, I think that's a cool idea, but I really want to see what the first actual thing Ganondorf is going to do upon his return. So guys, what did you think about those questions? Do you really want those answers too? Which do you think is the biggest question that you want answered out of these 5? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below and share up the video to keep the conversation going. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe as I post content every week. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for help making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, please check out my Patreon page. Alright guys, until the next Zelda video, this has been HMK, and I will check you guys later.